So in today's video I want to show you another one of the guitar sounds I got on this track that I'm working on, and this time it's going to be a lead sound. So here's the section of the song where the solo happens. Alright, so that was just to give you a little bit of context. Now here's the guitar solo on its own. Okay, with a nice delay tail. So as always, I want to show you some of the processing I did inside of Ableton, but then I also want to show you how I got this sound in the first place at the source. And as you know, I like to get my sounds right at the source so that I need minimal processing afterwards. And as you can see on this track here, I really do have minimal processing, just a limiter and a delay. So the limiter, as always, I'm using to keep levels consistent. And so check out the gain reduction here on the first few seconds of the solo. So notice how it does apply some gain reduction on the first kind of sound. So that was louder than the rest. So it reduced the gain, but then as I started to play actual notes, those were quieter, so they didn't trigger the limiter. So it didn't apply any gain reduction. So that is going to help have consistency so that you can always hear the solo with clarity and it doesn't get lost in the mix. And then the only other effect I have on it is this delay here. As always, removing the lows on the delay tabs and the highs. And I have some time modulation as well, which in this case, since I selected repitch mode, means pitch modulation. So these are all little tricks to make sure that you can distinguish as a listener between the actual dry signal in the middle and the taps on the sides, like this. Right, notice how the taps on the sides sound different. So there are no lows there, no highs, and the pitch is shifting a little bit. So, you know, differences between the affected signal and the dry signal for more clarity. Good, so that's all I did in Ableton, really. So let's have a look at how I actually got this sound in the first place. And I have some pictures here of my guitar rig. So the first element here are these two pedals. So my guitar goes into my laptop. The first thing it hits are these two pedals. A graphic EQ, cutting off some of the low lows and the low mids, because we don't really need those frequencies, right? We have a bass patch already on this song, and so let that take care of the bass and let the guitar kind of live in its own range. And then I have this beautiful Candy Fuzz pedal, which I chose because of its color, obviously, right? No, I actually like the way this sounds. And notice how I'm not using any drive. I set the drive knob to minimum here. And that is because I simply want to pass my sound through this pedal because it won't be reproducing all the frequencies accurately. So it's a bit like taking an analog picture of something. It won't look exactly like the real thing, right? It will look a little different, maybe a little more lo-fi, and that's more or less what I'm going for with this pedal. So it will emphasize certain frequency areas more than others. It won't reproduce the input perfectly at the output stage. But I like what it's doing, and so that's why I'm using it. So this then goes into my amp head, which is this one right here. And this is an emulation of a Marshall Super Lead Plexi with a Variac modification, or so the GarageBand wiki tells me. I have no idea if it sounds like the original, and quite frankly, I don't care. It sounds good to me, and so that's why I'm using it. Generous amount of gain. It's a lead tone after all. Rolling off some of the bass again because we don't need those frequencies. Boosting the mids a bit. This is exactly where this sound needs to sit in the mix, in the mid-range. And as you can see, no treble boost, no presence boost. So I went for a very different kind of tone. If you remember the previous video where I was showing you my very crisp, clean tone. So the sound now leaves my amp head and goes into my effects loop, which consists of only one pedal really, because I deactivated this one. This is a delay, but obviously the delay pedal in Ableton, or rather the delay plugin in Ableton, or rather the delay device in Ableton, that's what they're called, gives me many more options. And so I'm using this for live sound, but when recording, I prefer to have more options. So all I'm using is this retro chorus because I very much like how it sounds. It's a very subtle effect, even though the rate is set quite high, as you can see, and the depth isn't really that subtle either. So applying quite a bit of this, but it still sounds rather natural. And incidentally, this is why you have a stereo track, right? So this is my source track. As you can see, it has 2 channels, left and right, which is kind of unusual for guitars. Usually it's just one channel, right? Because a guitar has one output. But this retro chorus is applying different amounts of modulation to the left and the right channel, and so it stereoizes my sound, so to speak. And so after that, I'm going into my last stage here, which is obviously my cabinet, and I'm using this Dynamic 20 microphone. And this is, I've read a bit about it. It was used mainly for broadcasting, but Stevie Wonder used it to record as well. I just thought it sounded very nice on this particular amp and cab. And I don't know if you can see this, but it's backed off a little bit from the cone. The further away it is from the cone, the less bass frequencies it's going to capture. And we don't need no bass frequencies here. But it's also a little to the side. It's not dead center. So, and that is because the further you move it to the side of the cone, the less high frequencies it will capture, which is what I like in this case. I want to get that mellow lead tone and not that crisp tone that I was going for with my clean tone in the previous video. And so that is the sound at its source going into Ableton and being processed with a limiter and a delay to sound like this.